The music was too loud. It thumped through the floor, through Arya's heels, through her tired bones. She felt it in her ribs more than she heard it, a deep, steady reminder that the world kept moving even when she wanted it to stop. "Come on, Arya," her friend Megan said, already halfway through her cocktail. "You promised you'd have fun tonight." "I'm trying," Arya murmured, though she wasn't. The crowded bar glittered with too much light and too little warmth. People laughed too loudly, leaned too close, and smiled with the desperate kind of joy that only came from pretending. It was supposed to be just a small celebration, a coworker's birthday, a few drinks after their hospital shift. But the sight of all that careless happiness made Arya ache. She hadn't felt light in months, not since the divorce, not since Ryan had taken everything, her savings, her confidence, her sense of being loved. She lifted her glass and watched the cheap wine swirl inside it. "You know what I miss most," she said softly. Megan leaned closer. "What?" "Feeling like someone actually saw me." Arya gave a small, sad smile. "Like I wasn't invisible." Megan frowned. "You're not invisible, Arya. You're..." Whatever reassurance she meant to offer was cut short. Arya froze, her heart slamming against her chest. "Ryan." He stood across the bar, leaning casually against the counter, his hand resting on the waist of a tall woman with red lips and a designer dress. His new girlfriend. Of course. The woman's laughter cut through the noise, bright and sharp, like glass shattering. Megan followed Arya's gaze and cursed under her breath. "Oh, no. Don't tell me." "Yeah," Arya whispered. "That's him." Ryan looked even more polished than she remembered, same charming smirk, same expensive watch. It was as if their years together, the nights they'd fought, the tears she'd shed, had been neatly erased from his memory. Her stomach twisted as his eyes met hers. For a split second, surprise flickered in his gaze, followed by something colder. Disinterest. He turned away, whispering something to the woman beside him, who glanced over her shoulder and smirked. Arya's throat tightened. Her fingers clenched around the stem of her glass until it cracked. Megan caught her hand. "Hey. Don't do that. He's not worth it." "I know," Arya said, but her voice shook. I didn't think it would still hurt this much." Megan sighed. "Let's get out of here." "No." Arya forced a deep breath. "He doesn't get to chase me away from anywhere." "Not anymore." Megan hesitated, then nodded. "Okay. But if you start crying, I'm dragging you home." Arya managed a weak smile. "Deal." She turned her back to Ryan, pretending to be absorbed in the neon lights behind the bar. But she could still feel his presence, like a storm building at her back. The air thickened. Her chest felt too tight. She finished the last of her drink and signaled for another. "Rough night?" the bartender asked kindly. "You could say that," she murmured. As she waited for her refill, Arya caught her reflection in the mirror behind the bar. Her eyes looked tired. Her lipstick was smudged. Her hair, hastily tied after her hospital shift, was a mess. She looked like someone halfway between trying and giving up. She almost didn't recognize herself. That was when she heard the laugh. Ryan's laugh. Loud. Familiar. Cruel. He said something to his girlfriend, who glanced at Arya again, this time not with mockery, but with pity. The sound of that laugh, his old laugh, the one he used when he thought he'd won, ripped something inside her. Arya turned away. The music blurred into noise. She wanted to scream, to leave, to vanish. But before she could do any of that, a low voice spoke beside her. "You look like you're deciding whether to cry or burn the place down." She blinked, startled. A man stood next to her, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a dark suit that fit like it had been made for him. His presence felt solid, unbothered by the chaos around them. Even the people nearby seemed to give him more space than the crowded bar should have allowed. "Sorry," Arya said, her voice faint. The man's eyes were deep and steady, dark enough that they almost seemed black under the blue club lights. "You don't belong here," he said softly. "Not tonight." She frowned. "Excuse me?" He tilted his head slightly. "You're too sad for this kind of place." Something about his directness made her want to laugh. "And what kind of place is that?" He glanced around. One full of people pretending they aren't broken. She met his gaze then, steady, unflinching. So what does that make you? Someone who's not pretending, he said simply. The music shifted to a slower rhythm, and for a moment, it felt like the rest of the world faded. His presence was disarming, a strange mix of calm and danger. Who are you? Arya asked. He smiled faintly, the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. Just a man having a drink. Before she could say anything else, the bartender returned with her refill. She took it, grateful for something to do with her hands. When she looked back, the stranger was watching her reflection in the mirror, not her body, not her face, but her expression, as if studying the emotions she tried to hide. Arya swallowed. Well, stranger, you're right about one thing, she said finally. I don't belong here. He raised his glass slightly. Then why are you here? Arya looked toward the bar where Ryan stood, laughing again. Her heart squeezed painfully. Because I thought I could handle seeing him, she said quietly. Turns out I can't. The stranger followed her gaze. When he saw Ryan, something cold flickered across his face. Your ex. Unfortunately. Then he's an idiot. She gave a small laugh. You don't even know me. I don't have to. He met her eyes again. Any man who makes a woman look like that has no idea what is lost. Arya blinked, caught off guard. You're very confident for a stranger. I prefer observant, he said. And with that, he lifted his drink, nodded once, and disappeared into the crowd, leaving her wondering if she'd imagined the entire exchange. The rest of the evening blurred together. Arya left the club early, heart heavy, mind spinning. The stranger's words replayed in her head all the way home. Any man who makes a woman look like that has no idea what is lost. She didn't even know his name. Her apartment was quiet, small, and dim. The smell of antiseptic from her work clung to her clothes. She hung up her coat, kicked off her shoes, and sank onto the couch. The silence was deafening after the club's chaos. She tried to distract herself, music, a book, anything, but her thoughts drifted back to Ryan, then to the stranger with the dark eyes and quiet strength. What did he mean by observant? Why did he look at Ryan like that? Before she could spiral deeper, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Unknown, you shouldn't let men speak to you like that. Arya froze. Her pulse jumped. She read it again, certain she'd misunderstood. But no, the words were clear. Calm. Unsettling. She typed back, her fingers trembling. Arya, who is this? No reply. She stared at the screen for a full minute, waiting. Nothing. She tossed the phone aside, convincing herself it was a prank, probably Megan or one of the nurses teasing her. But deep down, she knew. The message had the same calm authority, the same quiet tone as the man at the bar. The next day at the hospital, she tried to forget about it. Work was busy. The ER was chaos as usual, stretchers rolling in, nurses shouting vitals, patients crying, monitors beeping. Arya moved through it all on instinct, doing what she did best, keeping people alive. By noon, she was exhausted but focused. She'd nearly convinced herself the message had been nothing until she stepped into the break room and froze. There, standing by the coffee machine, was him. The man from the club. Lucian Vale. He looked out of place in the fluorescent hospital light dark suit, silver watch, sharp posture. The air seemed to still around him. Megan, oblivious to Arya's shock, was chatting animatedly beside him. Mr. Vale here just made a huge donation to the ER fund. Can you believe it? Lucian turned then, and his gaze found Arya's immediately. Miss Cole, he said smoothly, as if they were already acquainted. Megan blinked. Wait, you two know each other? Arya struggled to find her voice. We met briefly. Lucian's mouth curved. At the bar, he said. You looked like someone who'd seen a ghost. Arya crossed her arms. And you looked like someone who shouldn't be at a hospital fundraiser. Megan laughed awkwardly. Okay, well, I'm gonna go, make sure the coffee doesn't burn. As she slipped out, the tension thickened. Lucian regarded Arya for a long moment. You're good at what you do, he said finally. She frowned. You don't even know what I do. I know you worked a 12-hour shift, skipped lunch, and still checked on the old man in Bay 4 before you took a break. Her breath caught. Were you watching me? He smiled faintly. Observing. There's a difference. Not really, she muttered. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. I wanted to make sure last night didn't follow you here. Her heart raced. Last night? Your ex, he said simply. He likes to humiliate people in public. Men like that rarely stop when ignored. She blinked, confused. You know him? Lucian's expression didn't change. I know his type. Something in his tone, that quiet, dangerous certainty, made her shiver. He reached into his jacket and handed her a sleek black business card. No logo, just a phone number. If he bothers you again, he said softly, call me. She stared at the card. And what are you supposed to do? Lucian smiled without humor. Collect what's owed. She hesitated, torn between suspicion and curiosity. You don't seem like the kind of man who helps strangers out of kindness. Maybe not, he said. But maybe I don't like seeing people waste their strength on men who don't deserve it. Their eyes met again, his calm, hers wary. She wanted to ask how he'd found her, why he'd bothered, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she tucked the card into her pocket. Thank you, she said quietly. But I can handle myself. Lucian nodded, though his gaze said he didn't believe her. Of course you can, he said softly. But you shouldn't have to. That night, when Arya came home, the city lights shimmered across her window. She sat on her couch, turning the business card over in her hands. Lucian Vale. The name carried weight, even though she'd never heard it before. It felt like something dangerous, something final. Her phone buzzed. Another message from the same number. Unknown, you didn't call. That's good. But keep the number. Some debts don't stay buried. Arya stared at the screen, her breath caught somewhere between fear and fascination. She typed back before she could stop herself. Arya, who are you? A pause. Then. Unknown, someone who pays attention. She set the phone down slowly. The message wasn't threatening, not exactly, but it left her pulse racing. She looked out the window into the dark street below. A black car idled at the curb for a moment before pulling away. For the first time in months, she didn't feel invisible. But she couldn't tell if that made her safer or more exposed. The weekend arrived like a sigh she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Arya tried to bury herself in chores, laundry, and the steady hum of hospital paperwork, anything to silence the thoughts that kept looping in her mind. But no matter how hard she tried, her mind returned to him. Lucian Vale. The man with the calm voice, the watchful eyes, and the kind of power that didn't need to be announced. She'd looked up his name online, of course she had. She found almost nothing concrete. A few whispers, donations to children's hospitals, real estate holdings under various companies, rumors about import and export dealings. Nothing clear. Nothing provable. The kind of blank digital footprint that screamed influence. By Saturday evening, she gave up pretending not to care. She needed air. She needed distraction. So she went back to the same bar, the same dim lights and blue haze where everything had begun. The music pulsed slower tonight, a sensual rhythm that wrapped around the crowd like smoke. Arya ordered a single drink and stood at the edge of the dance floor. She told herself she just wanted closure, to prove she could stand here again without breaking. Then she saw him. Lucian stood near the back of the room, half in shadow, watching her. He wasn't alone this time. Two men in dark suits flanked the walls near him, too still, too alert to be ordinary patrons. Yet his focus never left her. Arya's breath caught. You have got to be kidding me, she muttered under her breath. She turned toward the bar, pretending she hadn't seen him. But she could feel it, the weight of his gaze. Heavy. Intent. And when she risked a glance, he was already walking toward her. Back again, his voice was smooth, carrying easily over the music. I didn't think this place suited you. Arya took a sip of her drink, avoiding his eyes. Maybe I like bad ideas. Or maybe you're looking for answers, he said, stopping beside her. You searched my name. Her heart stuttered. Excuse me? Lucian's smile was faint, almost amused. Everyone does eventually. That's invasive, she said, half defensive, half stunned. It's honest, he replied simply. You're curious. That's good. Curiosity keeps people alive. Arya frowned. You make it sound like I'm in danger. Lucian's gaze flickered, and for a moment, the shadows in his eyes deepened. Everyone is, he said quietly. The difference is who knows it. A strange chill rolled down her spine, though his voice remained calm. Before she could respond, the crowd on the dance floor shifted, the beat slowing into something intimate. The music pulsed through the dim light like a heartbeat. Lucian extended a hand. Dance with me. The words were not a request. Not quite a command either. They simply were a calm inevitability. I don't dance with strangers, she said, trying for firmness. You know my name, he countered. That doesn't make you safe. His mouth curved into something resembling a smile. I never said I was safe. For a long moment, Arya said nothing. Then she caught a flicker of movement, her ex, Ryan, entering the bar with the same woman from before. His laughter filled the air like poison. Her stomach twisted. Lucian followed her gaze and seemed to understand instantly. So that's why you came back, he murmured. I didn't know he'd be here, she said defensively, but even to her own ears it sounded weak. Lucian's eyes softened. You don't have to explain. Ryan's gaze swept the room and landed on her. The moment their eyes met, the familiar smirk tugged at his mouth. He whispered something to his companion and started walking toward Arya. Panic flooded her chest. Fine, she whispered. One dance. Lucian took her hand before she could change her mind. The contact was electric. His palm was warm, his grip steady but not possessive. He led her onto the dance floor with effortless command, the crowd parting subtly around them as if the air itself made space for him. The music wrapped around them, slow and pulsing. Lucian placed his other hand lightly on her waist. Relax, he murmured. I've got you. Arya tried to keep her composure. You're enjoying this. I enjoy precision, he said quietly, guiding her in a slow turn. You move like someone who used to dance. She blinked, surprised. How could you possibly know that? The way you keep your balance, he said. Even when you're nervous. She couldn't help it, she laughed softly. You pay attention to everything, don't you? That's how I stay alive. There it was again, the quiet hint of danger beneath his charm. The crowd swayed around them, lost in the rhythm, but Arya felt as if there was only the two of them. Every step brought her closer to him, every breath filled with the faint scent of leather and something darker, smoke, maybe. Control. Then she felt it, Ryan's eyes on her. Lucian's voice dropped low. His watching. Arya's throat tightened. Good. Lucian turned her smoothly in his arms until her back pressed lightly against his chest. His breath brushed her ear. Does that make you feel better? He asked. She hesitated. Not better. Just, less small. Lucian's voice softened. You were never small, Arya. The music slowed further, the melody dissolving into a whisper. Arya turned back to face him. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes burned with something she couldn't name. Then, from behind her, Ryan's voice slurred through the crowd. Arya? What the hell are you doing? Lucian didn't move. His grip on her waist didn't tighten. But the air shifted. Ryan staggered closer, his words thick with alcohol. So this is what you do now? Dance with random men to make me jealous? Arya stepped back, anger cutting through her nerves. You have no right to talk to me. Don't start, Ryan hissed, ignoring her. You think this guy cares about you? He doesn't even know you. Lucian finally turned, his gaze settling on Ryan with quiet precision. The lady said she doesn't want to talk to you. Ryan scoffed. Who the hell do you think you are? Lucian smiled without humor. Someone giving you a chance to walk away. Something in his tone made even the music seem to falter. Ryan opened his mouth again but froze when two men, Lucian's, shifted slightly in the background. They didn't touch him, didn't speak. But the message was clear. Ryan's face went pale. This isn't over, he muttered, backing up. Lucian's voice remained calm. It is. When Ryan disappeared into the crowd, Arya let out a shaky breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Lucian's hand moved from her waist to the small of her back, steadying her. "You all right?" he asked. She nodded. "Yeah. Just embarrassed." "Don't be." His tone was soft. He needed to learn a lesson. Arya met his gaze. "And you like teaching lessons?" "I like balance," Lucian said simply. Something about the way he said it made her pulse quicken. He offered her a small, genuine smile then. "You dance well, Miss Cole." "Arya," she corrected automatically. "Arya," he repeated, as if tasting the name. "It suits you." For the first time in months, she smiled without forcing it. When Arya woke the next morning, sunlight streamed through her blinds, catching on the business card still lying on her nightstand. Lucian's number. She didn't know why she hadn't thrown it away. Maybe because a part of her didn't want to. The memory of last night replayed vividly, his voice, the slow rhythm of the dance, the way Ryan had backed down with a single look from him. Power had a sound, she realized. It was quiet. But power always came with a price. By noon, she was at the hospital again, trying to lose herself in her shift. It worked for a while until Megan cornered her near the nurse's station. "So," Megan said, eyes gleaming. "Guess who I saw leaving the ER last night after your shift ended?" Arya blinked. "Who?" "A very expensive black car with a driver in a suit. You wouldn't happen to know who that belongs to, would you?" Arya laughed nervously. "No idea." "Aha." Megan crossed her arms. "Because the driver asked for Miss Cole and waited for 15 minutes before leaving." Arya froze. "He what?" "Spill," Megan demanded. "What's going on? Who is this guy?" Arya hesitated. "I met someone." "Kind of." Megan grinned. "And by kind of, you mean a mysterious man who sends cars and scares your ex so bad he almost cries?" Arya sighed. "Something like that." "Well, you deserve it," Megan said. "After Ryan, you deserve to feel like the main character." Arya smiled weakly, but inside, unease stirred. She hadn't told Lucian where she worked. She hadn't mentioned her last name, either. And yet, he'd found her easily. That evening, as she left the hospital, a black car idled near the curb. The same one. The driver stepped out, his posture crisp. "Miss Cole," he said politely, opening the rear door. "Mr. Vale sent me." Arya's pulse jumped. "He did what?" "He asked that I ensure you got home safely." She hesitated. "Tell him I said thank you, but I can take the bus." The driver inclined his head. Mr. Vale expected that answer. He handed her an envelope. "He also asked that I deliver this." Arya took it, curiosity warring with caution. The envelope was heavy, the paper thick. Inside, she found a folded note written in elegant handwriting. "Don't let pride keep you walking home alone in the dark. Some debts are safer paid early. L. No money. No threat. Just a quiet warning." Arya tucked the note into her bag and went home by bus anyway, but she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching. When she reached her apartment, she glanced up at the street. A black car sat 2 blocks away, headlights dimmed. She closed the curtains. Hours later, her phone buzzed. A message from Lucian. "Lucian, you made it home safely. Good." She stared at the screen. "You're tracking me now?" "Lucian, no. Just ensuring you're safe. I told you, I pay attention." "Arya, you can't just send people after me, Lucian." "Lucian, you didn't answer when I offered help. That leaves me guessing what you need." She hesitated before typing back. "Arya, maybe I just need space." "Lucian, space is a kind of silence. Silence gets people hurt." The message chilled her more than she wanted to admit. Not because it sounded threatening, but because she knew, deep down, he wasn't wrong. Before she could respond, another message appeared. "Lucian, tomorrow, 7 p.m. dinner. My driver will wait. If you want answers, come. If not, he'll leave after 10 minutes." Arya stared at the screen for a long moment, heart pounding. She should refuse. She wanted to refuse. But curiosity, that dangerous, magnetic pull, won again. She typed one word. "Arya, fine." Then she set her phone down, leaned back against the couch, and closed her eyes. For the first time in years, her life felt unpredictable again. And for reasons she couldn't explain, that terrified her and thrilled her all at once. The next evening, the world outside Arya's window was painted in amber light, that in between time when the city wasn't quite awake or asleep. She stood in front of her mirror, trying not to think about what she was doing. Dinner with Lucian Vale. She told herself it wasn't a date. It was a conversation. A way to get answers. A chance to understand who he really was, and why he had become tangled up in her life. But as she glanced at her reflection, she couldn't ignore the nerves in her chest or the way her pulse quickened whenever she thought of his eyes, calm, unreadable, always watching. A knock interrupted her thoughts. 3 slow, deliberate taps. She opened the door to find the same driver standing outside. "Good evening, Miss Cole," he said politely, as though picking her up for something far more ordinary than what this felt like. "Mr. Vale is expecting you." Arya nodded and followed him downstairs, her palms slick with nerves. The black car gleamed at the curb like an ink stain against the street. She hesitated before stepping inside. Lucian was not there. Instead, a small note rested on the seat beside a single white rose. No expectations. Just conversation. L. Her lips curved despite herself. Smooth, she thought, shaking her head. The drive was silent except for the low hum of the engine. The city lights slid by like blurred stars. When the car finally stopped, the driver opened her door and gestured toward a tall building overlooking the water, glass and steel and quiet wealth. The elevator ride felt endless. At the top floor, the doors slid open to reveal a wide room filled with soft light. Lucian was waiting. He stood near a wall of glass, the city sprawling behind him like a living painting. No suit tonight, just a black shirt, sleeves rolled to his forearms, the first 2 buttons undone. He turned as she entered, and the faintest smile tugged at his mouth. "Right on time." Arya stepped closer, pretending confidence. "I didn't know punctuality was something you kept track of." "I keep track of everything." Her pulse skipped. "That's not comforting." Lucian chuckled, a low sound that seemed to fill the space. "It isn't meant to be." He gestured toward a table set near the windows. Candles flickered between plates of food that looked like art. The air smelled faintly of citrus and roasted herbs. "I wasn't sure what you liked," he said. "So I asked my chef to prepare options." "I would have been fine with takeout," she said, sitting down. "I know," he replied. "That's why I didn't serve it." Arya arched a brow. "You always get what you want, don't you?" Lucian's gaze lingered on her for a moment too long. "Only when it's worth wanting." The conversation flowed easier than she'd expected. He asked about her work, her favorite books, the small things that filled her days. He listened, really listened, like every word mattered. When she asked about his life, though, his answers stayed vague. "Business," he said. "Trade. Logistics. Legal," she pressed. He smiled faintly. "Mostly." They ate in comfortable silence for a while, the city's glow shimmering on the water below. Then Lucian leaned back, studying her. "You still look like you're waiting to run," he said quietly. "I'm not," she lied. "You are. It's in the way you hold your glass, the way your eyes check the exits without realizing." Arya blinked, startled. "You notice too much." "It's a habit," he said. "When you spend your life dealing with people who lie, you learn to read truth from the small things." "And what do you read from me?" she asked, almost challenging. Lucian's expression softened. "That you want to believe in good men again, but you're not sure they exist." The honesty of it hit her like a blow. She looked down at her plate, unable to hold his gaze. "Maybe I stopped believing in fairy tales a long time ago." He leaned forward slightly, his voice a low murmur. "Then don't believe in fairy tales. Believe in actions. Words are cheap. People show you what they are by what they protect." There was something in the way he said it, quiet conviction wrapped in danger. Arya met his eyes again. "And what do you protect?" Lucian hesitated, then said simply, "What's mine?" For a heartbeat, the air felt heavier, as if meaning lingered just beneath the surface of the words. Then he smiled faintly, shifting the tone. You should eat more. My chef will be insulted if you leave it untouched. She smiled back, though her mind was still turning over what he'd said. When dinner ended, Lucian stood and offered his hand. Let me show you the view. He led her toward the glass wall, where the ocean spread out in dark, rippling blue. The moon hung low above it, perfect and cold. Beautiful, she whispered. Yes, he said softly. It is. When she turned, she found him watching her not with hunger, but with something deeper. Something searching. She didn't step back. You scare me a little, she admitted. I know. That doesn't bother you. Lucian's eyes darkened. If it keeps you alert, no. Fear isn't always bad, Arya. It keeps people alive. It also tells you what matters. He moved closer, close enough that she could feel the quiet heat of him. You think I'm dangerous, he said. I know you are. He didn't deny it. And yet you came. Arya swallowed. Curiosity. Curiosity, he murmured, his lips curving slightly. That's how most dangerous things begin. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded envelope, and handed it to her. Before you ask, it's not money. She opened it. Inside was a single photograph: Ryan, her ex-husband, standing outside a bank, arguing with another man. What is this? She asked, confused. Proof, Lucian said calmly. That he moved the money he stole from you into an account he can't touch anymore. Her hands trembled. You did this. I corrected a theft. Lucian, you can't just. I can, he interrupted softly. And I did. She stared at him, disbelief and confusion warring inside her. You had no right. I had every right, he said quietly. You were wronged. I fixed it. That's not how justice works. He smiled faintly. Justice is a matter of who's holding the scale. Arya's heart raced. You're playing God. Lucian's voice dropped, low and even. No, Arya. Gods demand worship. I demand respect. The quiet certainty in his tone unsettled her more than anger ever could have. She didn't know whether to thank him or walk away. He studied her for a long moment, then added gently, I won't apologize for protecting you. I didn't ask for your protection. I know, he said. I didn't ask for permission. The words hung between them, dangerous, intimate, final. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Lucian stepped back, the sharp edge in his tone softening. It's late. Let me have my driver take you home. Arya hesitated, still holding the envelope. You're not giving me much choice, are you? He smiled faintly. No, Arya. But I'll always give you the option to say no. She looked at him, trying to read what lay behind that calm expression: guilt, pride, something else entirely. She found nothing. Only certainty. Without another word, she followed him to the elevator. As the doors closed, she glanced back. He was still standing by the window, staring out at the dark water like a man at peace with the storm he'd just caused. The next morning, sunlight slipped through the blinds of her apartment, finding her where she sat on the edge of the bed, still holding the envelope. The money was real. The transfer confirmation from the bank was real. Lucian had done something impossible, something illegal, but he had done it for her. Part of her wanted to be furious. Another part was grateful. She spent the day trying to shake off both feelings. But by the time her shift ended, she was no closer to calm. When she stepped outside the hospital that evening, the driver was there again. Same car. Same quiet professionalism. Mr. Vale asked if you'd like to talk, he said. Arya hesitated only a moment before getting in. The city passed by in silence. When they arrived, Lucian was waiting in the same place as before, dressed simply in a dark jacket this time, a glass of wine in hand. You came, he said. You sent a car, she replied dryly. He smiled. You could have said no. I tried that once. It didn't work. Lucian's expression softened. Then maybe I need to listen better. Arya crossed her arms. You broke laws, Lucian. You can't just fix people's lives like they're part of your business portfolio. I didn't fix your life, he said quietly. I removed one obstacle from it. That's not your decision to make. He regarded her with a patience that made her angrier. "You're right," he said finally. "But I made it anyway." She shook her head. "You can't keep doing this. I'm not some project," he finished for her. "I know. You're not. Then stop treating me like one." Lucian stepped closer, his gaze steady. "I don't see you as a project, Arya. I see you as a person who's been forced to fight alone for too long." She blinked, thrown by the gentleness in his tone. He continued, voice low but firm. "When you've lived in the kind of world I live in, you learn that loneliness can kill faster than a bullet. You're strong, yes, but strength shouldn't mean isolation." Arya looked away, the words striking deeper than she wanted to admit. "Why do you care?" she whispered. "You barely know me." Lucian hesitated. "Because I see something in you I haven't seen in a long time. Someone who still believes in doing right, even when the world doesn't deserve it." He took a slow step closer. "You remind me of what I used to want to be." Arya met his gaze, her defenses faltering. "And what's that?" "A good man," he said softly. Silence stretched between them, thick, fragile, real. Finally, she exhaled. "And what now? You expect me to just accept this?" "I expect nothing," Lucian said. "But I'd like to make you an offer." Arya frowned. "An offer?" He gestured for her to sit, and after a pause, she did. "I know your job exhausts you," he said. "You're saving lives while worrying about rent and student loans. That's not balance, Arya. It's punishment." "That's just life," she said bitterly. "It's not the only one," Lucian replied. "I can help. I can fund your education. Erase your debts. No conditions. No strings." She stared at him. "You expect me to believe that?" "I expect you to consider it." Her pulse quickened. "Why?" Lucian's gaze softened. "Because you deserve better than survival." She wanted to refuse immediately, to throw his words back. But something stopped her, the quiet sincerity in his voice, the way he didn't look smug or expectant, just calm. "Let me guess," she said, forcing a laugh. "You'll call it an investment." Lucian smiled faintly. "Everything worthwhile is." "I'm not for sale," she said. "I know." His voice was barely above a whisper. "That's what makes you valuable." The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable this time. It was heavy with possibility and danger. Finally, Arya rose. "You have a strange way of helping people, Lucian Vale." He stood too, matching her height easily. "It's the only way I know." As she turned to leave, he said quietly, "The offer stands. Whether you take it or not, I'll still make sure no one ever hurts you again." She stopped in the doorway. "You can't promise that." "I can," he said simply. "And I just did." Arya walked away without replying, but as the elevator doors closed behind her, she realized her heart was pounding not from fear but from something far more dangerous. Because despite everything, the lies, the danger, the impossible choices, she knew she would see him again. 2 days passed before Arya heard from Lucian again. Part of her was relieved. The other part, the one she tried hard to ignore, felt the hollow pull of absence. She threw herself into work, covering double shifts, sleeping in snatches between emergencies. The hospital was her refuge, chaotic, loud, but honest. Pain there had purpose. You stitched it, cleaned it, fixed it. But Lucian's world wasn't like that. His world bent around willpower, not rules. On Friday morning, when she finally dragged herself home, the building concierge waved her down. "Miss Cole. Package for you." She frowned. "I didn't order anything." He handed her a black box tied with a deep red ribbon. Heavy. Elegant. No sender listed, just her name written in perfect handwriting. Back in her apartment, she hesitated before opening it. Inside was a folded note on thick, cream paper and a dress, soft black silk, light as breath. "For tonight. 7 p.m. A driver will wait downstairs. If you'd rather not, burn the dress. L." Arya set the note down slowly. The silk shimmered between her fingers. Burn it. He'd said that like he meant it. No pressure, no demand, just an acknowledgement that she still had the choice. But she couldn't deny what she felt. Curiosity. A quiet thrill. Fear, but not the kind that warned her to run. The kind that whispered she was standing on the edge of something she'd never known. By 6:30, she gave up pretending. She slipped into the dress. It fit like it had been made for her, the neckline modest but the shape elegant, the hem brushing her knees. She left her hair loose and added a touch of lipstick, then stared at herself in the mirror. She didn't look like the tired ER nurse who dragged through 12-hour shifts. She looked like someone else, someone almost whole again. At exactly 7, the car arrived. The driver nodded silently as she entered. "Evening, Miss Cole." The ride was quiet, the city's lights blurring by. When the car stopped, she found herself outside an old stone building she'd never noticed before, all glass doors and flickering lanterns. Inside, everything was low light and quiet music. Lucian was waiting near the back, seated at a private table. He rose when he saw her. For a moment, he said nothing. His eyes swept over her, slow and deliberate, not in ownership, in appreciation. "You came," he said softly. "You sent a dress," she replied, trying to sound composed. "I was hoping you'd ignore the instructions and wear it anyway." "Why?" Lucian smiled slightly. "Because defiance looks good on you." The waiter appeared as if summoned, pouring wine. Arya took a sip, trying not to show how nervous she was. "You don't like being predictable," she said. Lucian's gaze held hers. "Predictability is a comfort for the powerless." She tilted her head. "And you?" "I prefer control." The words might have sounded arrogant from anyone else, but his tone was too calm, too factual to be pride. Dinner unfolded like a slow dance. He didn't talk about himself much, but when he asked her questions about childhood memories, the first time she'd wanted to become a nurse, the scariest night she'd ever had on the job, he listened with the kind of focus that disarmed her. At one point, she laughed without realizing she'd done it. Lucian looked pleased. "That sound suits you better than silence." "I don't laugh much these days," she admitted. "You should," he said. "It confuses your enemies." The waiter cleared the plates, leaving 2 glasses and the soft hum of music. Lucian leaned back slightly. "I have something for you." Arya raised an eyebrow. "Another gift?" "Something smaller," he said, reaching into his jacket and sliding a velvet box across the table. She opened it. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet, thin, simple, elegant. "It's beautiful," she said, surprised. "But unnecessary. Most beautiful things are." She hesitated. "Lucian, I can't." "You can," he interrupted softly. "It's not a debt. It's a reminder." "Of what?" His eyes softened. "That you're allowed to have nice things again." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Arya fastened the bracelet around her wrist, feeling its faint weight. "You make it hard to keep hating you." Lucian smiled faintly. "Then I'm succeeding." The conversation shifted, lighter now. They talked about music, travel, food. Yet beneath every exchange, an invisible thread tugged at both of them, quiet, electric. As they finished, Lucian glanced at her hand. "You're still tense," he said. "Habit. Let me fix that." He stood, offering his hand. The music changed, soft jazz, low and slow. Arya hesitated only a second before taking it. He guided her to an open space near the window, where the city lights spilled across the floor. His touch was gentle, his step steady, unhurried. "This isn't a dance floor," she said. "It is now." The world seemed to shrink around them. His hand rested lightly against her back, not possessive, grounding. She felt the rhythm in his chest more than she heard it. "You're thinking too much," he murmured. "It's what I do." "Then stop," he said quietly. "Just be." For once, she did. When the song ended, Lucian didn't step back immediately. His gaze lingered on her face, then dropped to her bracelet. "You wore it well," he said. "Thank you," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "Don't thank me. I'm not generous. I'm just invested." "In what?" He hesitated, then said, "In seeing what happens when you stop running." Her breath caught. The driver appeared a moment later, discreet as ever. Lucian turned to her, his expression unreadable again. "I'll have him take you home." Arya nodded, her pulse still unsteady. As she walked away, she heard his voice, quiet, almost to himself. Defiance and grace. Dangerous combination. Arya couldn't sleep. The night replayed in her mind, the dance, his words, the bracelet now glinting softly on her nightstand. She told herself she shouldn't see him again. That he was dangerous. That no one with that kind of reach and calm could exist without shadows. But the truth whispered differently. Lucian made her feel seen. And that was something she hadn't felt in years. At work the next day, she tried to distract herself. It worked until lunchtime, when she stepped outside to grab a coffee and froze. A sleek black car sat parked across the street. Same as before. Her stomach tightened. She walked past it, pretending not to notice. But when she returned 20 minutes later, the car was gone, replaced by a single envelope on the bench near the hospital entrance. Her name was written in that same sharp handwriting. Inside. Stop walking home alone. Some debts don't wait until daylight. L. Arya looked around. No sign of anyone. No cameras. Just the wind picking up leaves along the sidewalk. She crumpled the note, heart pounding. He was watching. Always watching. That evening, she called him. Lucian answered on the second ring. Arya. You need to stop, she said, trying to sound steady. No more notes. No cars. No warnings. Silence. Then his calm voice. Someone tried to follow you last night. She froze. What? One of Ryan's old friends, Lucian continued. He's been asking about you. I took care of it. Her pulse jumped. What do you mean, took care of it? Nothing permanent, he said. He understands you're under protection now. You had no right, she snapped. I had every reason, he said quietly. You were being watched. Arya gripped the phone tighter, torn between anger and fear. You don't get to decide who protects me. Lucian's voice softened. Then tell me to stop. She hesitated. The silence stretched. Tell me to stop, and I will, he said again. Arya closed her eyes. I can't. Then let me do what I do best, he said gently. Keep you safe. When the call ended, her hands were shaking. That night, she dreamed of him. Of quiet eyes and calm danger, of a voice that could both terrify and steady her at once. When she woke, the bracelet on her wrist felt heavier. By noon, Megan noticed. Okay, she said, eyeing her. You've got that look. What look? The look of someone thinking about a man she shouldn't be. Arya forced a laugh. It's not like that. Sure, Megan said, unconvinced. Just be careful, okay? I know you like to fix broken things, but some people break back. Arya smiled faintly. Noted. But later that day, when she checked her phone, she found a message from Lucian. Lucian, I left something for you at home. Don't panic. She blinked. At home. When her shift ended, she rushed to her apartment. The door wasn't forced, just unlocked. Inside, everything was untouched except the kitchen counter, where a small box sat beside a note. For emergencies only. She opened it to find a compact black device, a panic button linked to a GPS signal, according to the label. You're unbelievable, she muttered, half angry, half awed. She texted him immediately. Arya, you broke into my apartment. Lucian, I had someone replace your lock. You had a weak bolt. Arya, that's not an excuse. Lucian, it's not an apology either. She almost threw the phone. But then another message came through. Lucian, I don't want control, Arya. I want certainty. You live in a world that takes too much from you already. I won't let it take anything else. Her anger faltered. She sat on the couch, staring at the tiny device in her hand. Safe, she thought. Or owned. She didn't know anymore. Later that night, she stepped out onto her balcony. The city glowed below, lights flickering like heartbeat patterns. Somewhere out there, she knew he was watching. And though she told herself she should be scared, what she felt instead was something far more complicated, a pull she couldn't name. Because with Lucian, fear and safety felt like two sides of the same coin. And for the first time in a long time, she wasn't sure which side she wanted to land on. The days that followed blurred together. Aria worked, ate little, slept less. Every time she looked at her phone, she expected another message from Lucian, but he was silent. That silence felt heavier than his presence ever had. She told herself it was good. Distance would bring clarity. But each quiet night in her apartment stretched longer, emptier. Then, on Thursday, Ryan showed up. She spotted him waiting outside the hospital entrance just after her shift, leaning against a pillar like he belonged there. His clothes were wrinkled, his expression strained, not the smug, self-satisfied man she remembered. "Aria," he called as she tried to walk past. "Please. Just talk to me." She stopped, shoulders tight. "You have a lot of nerve showing up here." He raised his hands. "I'm not here to fight. You shouldn't be here at all." Ryan stepped closer, voice low. "Look, I made mistakes, okay? But they're bad now. You don't understand what kind of people I was involved with." She folded her arms. "I understand perfectly. You stole from me. You lied. You left. And now you're standing here because you ran out of people to use." He winced. "I deserve that. But Aria, please listen to me. You have to stay away from that man." Her chest tightened. "What man?" "Lucian Vale." Hearing his name from Ryan's mouth made her stomach twist. "How do you even know about him?" Ryan looked around nervously. "Everyone knows him. He's not who he says he is. You think he's some kind of businessman? He's worse than the people I owed money to. Way worse." Aria's pulse quickened. "What do you mean owed money?" Ryan hesitated, guilt flickering in his eyes. "I borrowed from someone in his network. I thought I could double it before the payment came due. I was wrong. And now." He cut himself off, looking over her shoulder. His face drained of color. Aria turned. Across the street, parked beneath the shade of an oak tree, a black car idled. Ryan swallowed hard. "You see. They're watching me. Always watching." The car's window rolled down slightly. For a split second, Aria saw a man in a suit, not Lucian, but one of the quiet ones who always seemed to appear near him. Ryan stepped back, panic rising. "I shouldn't have come. They'll think I'm—" "Ryan," she called, but he was already gone, disappearing into the crowd. She stood there frozen, staring after him, the sound of her heartbeat loud in her ears. That night, she called Lucian. He answered on the first ring. "Aria." "Ryan came to the hospital," she said, voice shaking. "He said you're watching him. That he owes you money." Lucian was silent for a long moment. "He did. And now?" "Now he owes me nothing." "What does that mean?" she asked, dread creeping in. "It means he's not your problem anymore." Her breath caught. "What did you do?" "I handled it." "That's not an answer. It's the only one I'm giving you." "Lucian." He cut her off gently, but with finality. "He hurt you. He used you. I don't let people like that keep breathing down your neck." "Breathing," she repeated softly. "That's an interesting choice of words." Lucian's tone didn't change. "He's alive. For now. And far away." She didn't know if she believed him. "Don't follow his ghosts, Aria," he added quietly. "They'll only drag you backward." She hung up without replying, her hands trembling. When she turned toward the window, the city lights outside seemed sharper, colder. And in the reflection, for just an instant, she thought she saw a figure, still, silent, standing across the street. By the time she looked again, it was gone. The next evening, rain fell in sheets hard enough to wash the world into blurs of silver and gray. Aria left the hospital long after sunset, exhausted and aching. Her phone buzzed once. "Lucian, don't walk tonight. Wait for the car." She stared at the message, jaw tight. She didn't reply. She was tired of feeling like a pawn in someone else's game. Tired of being watched, guided, managed. So she ignored him and started walking home. Halfway there, she realized her mistake. The streets were mostly empty. The rain made everything slick and reflective, the lamplight bending across puddles. She pulled her coat tighter and quickened her pace. Behind her, footsteps echoed. Slow. Measured. Her heart jumped. She turned, no one there. Just rain. She walked faster. The sound followed. At the next corner, she ducked into an alley, hoping for a shortcut. The walls closed in, wet brick glistening under dim light. The footsteps grew louder. Aria. She spun. Ryan stood there, soaked through, eyes wild. What are you doing here? She demanded. I need help, he said desperately. You don't understand. They're after me. You brought this on yourself. I know. His voice cracked. But I can't get out of it. He'll kill me. She stared at him, rain dripping from her hair. Lucian? Ryan nodded frantically. Please. You have to talk to him. He listens to you. You think I can control him? You're the only one who can. Before she could answer, a low hum cut through the rain, a car engine idling nearby. A black sedan glided to a stop at the mouth of the alley. Ryan froze. No, 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 no. The back door opened. Lucian stepped out. He didn't shout. He didn't hurry. He just walked forward, slow and calm, rain beading on his coat. Ryan, he said softly. We had an agreement. Ryan backed up. Please. I'll pay you back. I swear. Just give me time. Lucian's voice was quiet. Time is the only thing you can't buy back. Lucian, stop, Aria said, stepping between them. This isn't the place. He looked at her, expression unreadable. Go home. No. You can't just. I said go home, Aria. His tone didn't rise, but something in it made her breath catch. Ryan grabbed her arm. Don't leave me with him. Lucian's gaze flicked to the hand on her arm. The look in his eyes changed, cold, precise. Let her go, he said quietly. Ryan hesitated. Lucian took one step forward. Now. Ryan's grip loosened immediately. He stumbled backward, slipping in the rain. Lucian didn't follow. He just stood there, watching, calm, almost detached. You had your chance, he said. Then he turned to Aria. Get in the car. She hesitated, torn between fear and defiance. Please, Lucian added softly. Before you see something you can't unsee. That broke her. She moved past him, climbed into the car. The rain drummed harder against the roof. Through the window, she saw Lucian turn back toward Ryan. Their voices were lost to the storm. A moment later, Ryan was gone, swallowed by the night, by the rain, by whatever shadow followed Lucian Vale. The car door opened, and Lucian slid in beside her, soaked but composed. It's done, he said quietly. She stared at him. What did you do? He met her gaze evenly. I ended the noise. Noise, she whispered. Fear. Blackmail. Lies. His tone didn't waver. He won't bother you again. She looked away, heart racing. You scare me, Lucian. I know. Does that bother you? No, he said. Fear means you understand what I am. She turned to face him. And what are you? Lucian's eyes softened, just barely. Someone who doesn't leave things broken. Neither spoke for the rest of the drive. The sound of the rain filled the silence between them, heavy, relentless, cleansing. When they reached her apartment, he walked her to the door. The streetlight cast a pale halo around them. I didn't want you to see any of that, he said quietly. But you wanted me to know, she said. Lucian's eyes met hers. Yes. Why? Because honesty is the only thing I can offer that isn't corrupted. Her throat tightened. You think that makes this okay? No, he said. It makes it real. He turned to leave, then stopped. Aria. She looked up. Don't hate me for doing what you wished someone had done years ago. Before she could reply, he walked away, disappearing into the rain. That night, Aria sat on her couch, soaked clothes clinging to her skin, the bracelet still glinting on her wrist. She should have felt disgusted. Afraid. But instead, what she felt was something she couldn't explain, a strange, terrible gratitude. Because for the first time since her life fell apart, the ghosts were gone. And in their place stood one man, dangerous, unpredictable, and entirely hers to fear. The world looked softer in the morning light. The rain had stopped, but its scent lingered, damp concrete, washed leaves, the faint trace of ocean carried inland. Arya hadn't slept. She sat by the window, wrapped in a blanket, watching the sunrise bleed gold across the city. Her thoughts looped in quiet circles. What she had seen the night before didn't have a shape she could name. It was too calm, too deliberate. Lucian hadn't shouted, hadn't threatened. He had simply ended things. And she had let him. When the knock came at her door, she already knew it was him. Lucian stood in the hallway, dressed down in a dark sweater and jeans. No driver, no bodyguards. Just him, quiet, still, composed. He held a paper cup of coffee in each hand. "You look awake," he said. "I haven't slept." "I didn't think you would." He offered her one of the cups. She took it automatically. Their fingers brushed. Warmth met warmth. "You shouldn't be here," she said, though her voice lacked conviction. "I needed to make sure you were all right." Arya gave a small, humorless laugh. "You mean make sure I didn't call the police?" Lucian's expression didn't change. "Would you?" She looked at him for a long time. "No," she said finally. "Because I don't even know what I'd tell them." He nodded once, accepting that. "Then you understand." "Understand what?" "That sometimes the only way to stop chaos is to remove the source." Arya took a sip of coffee, the bitterness grounding her. "You talk about it like it's business." "It is business," he said quietly. "Everything is, in the world I live in." "And the world I live in?" He met her gaze. "It keeps trying to forget people like me exist." She sighed and set the cup down. "You keep saying you're protecting me. But from what, Lucian? From other people? From myself?" He hesitated before answering. "From the part of the world that eats kindness alive." Arya stared at him, her frustration ebbing into a strange, reluctant empathy. "You talk like someone who stopped believing in goodness a long time ago." Lucian's mouth curved faintly. "Maybe I started believing in strategy instead." He walked past her then, to the window, looking out over the city. "The man you saw last night will leave you alone. Permanently. His debts are closed." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "And if I asked how?" "I'd tell you not to," he said softly. Silence fell between them. Outside, the city began to wake. Car horns, footsteps, distant laughter. The normal world going on as though nothing had changed. "Arya," Lucian said after a while, "you don't have to be afraid of me." "I'm not," she said automatically, then caught herself. "Or maybe I am. I don't know." He turned from the window, the morning light catching in his eyes. "Fear isn't always the enemy. Sometimes it's just awareness. And what am I supposed to be aware of?" His gaze held hers. "That you're safer with me than without me. Even when you don't like how that sounds." The quiet conviction in his voice unnerved her more than anger would have. "I need to think," she said finally. He nodded. "Then think. But eat something. You look like you haven't eaten in days." She managed a small smile. "You really can't turn off the control thing, can you?" Lucian returned the smile, faint but genuine. "Probably not." He left soon after. When the door closed behind him, the apartment felt colder, emptier, yet oddly calmer. Arya sat there for a long time, the untouched coffee cooling in her hands, before whispering to the silence. "What are you doing to me, Lucian Vale?" That afternoon, she tried to return to normal. She cleaned, she cooked, she called Megan, forcing laughter she didn't feel. But by nightfall, her mind returned to the same place, the way Lucian had looked at her that morning, half regret, half something unspoken. Around 9, her phone buzzed. "Lucian, I have something for you. You can say no." "Arya, what is it?" "Lucian, a key." Her heart skipped. "Arya, to what?" "Lucian, a place that's safe when you need to disappear." She stared at the message, not knowing what to reply. "The next evening," she said yes. Lucian picked her up himself this time. The car ride was quiet, the city lights streaking past in gold and silver. He didn't explain where they were going. She didn't ask. When the car stopped, they were at the ocean's edge, a stretch of coast she'd never seen before, the kind of place you only found by accident or by invitation. A long, modern house stood there, glass and stone, half hidden by trees. Light spilled through wide windows, flickering against the waves. Your house? She asked softly. One of them. He led her inside. The interior was minimalist, pale marble floors, dark wood, tall shelves lined with books instead of ornaments. The quiet hum of the sea filled the air. Arya hesitated near the doorway. It doesn't look lived in. It isn't, Lucian said. I come here when I need to think. About what? About whether I'm still human. She glanced at him sharply, but he wasn't smiling. He handed her a small silver key. This is yours. If you ever feel unsafe from anyone, including me, you come here. No one else knows the address. She frowned. You really expect me to believe you'd give me a place to hide from you? I don't expect belief, he said quietly. I expect you to remember that I told you the truth. There was something about his voice, stripped of charm, stripped of control, that made her chest ache. They walked through the house together, room by room. Every space was clean but impersonal, like a hotel waiting for a guest. Until she reached the study. The door was slightly ajar. Lucian hesitated. That room's private. She met his eyes. Private from everyone, or private from me? He didn't answer. She pushed the door open anyway. Inside, the walls were lined with filing cabinets and shelves stacked with black binders. A large desk sat in the center, papers spread across it in neat order. On the far wall, photographs were pinned under glass, people's faces, documents, maps with red threads connecting names. Arya stepped closer. Her stomach tightened. One of the folders lay open. Her name was on the tab. Arya, Lucian said quietly behind her. She picked up the folder. Inside were printouts, hospital schedules, her rental agreement, a copy of her nursing license, even an old photo of her and Ryan from years ago. Her voice came out hoarse. You investigated me. Yes. Before we even met. Yes. Why? She demanded. Because I looked convenient. Because you needed another file in your collection. Lucian stepped closer, his voice low but steady. Because your ex owed me money, and I needed to know who was caught in his mess. You were collateral. She felt something twist inside her, anger, disbelief, a sting of humiliation. Collateral, she repeated, the word tasting bitter. Until I met you, he said quietly. Then you became something else. What, exactly? She asked, tears prickling at her eyes. A project. A distraction. A reminder that you can still pretend to care. No, he said. Something real. She turned away, clutching the folder. You could have told me. You would have walked away. Maybe I should have. Lucian's voice softened. Maybe. But you didn't. For a moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the sea outside, steady and endless. Finally, Arya closed the folder and set it back on the desk. You don't get to decide what truths I can handle, Lucian. He nodded slowly. You're right. Then why do it? Because in my world, he said, truth without control gets people killed. The quiet in his tone made her anger falter. Do you even hear yourself? You talk like there's no other way to live. There isn't. Not for me. Arya turned toward the door, her hands shaking. I can't be part of this. He didn't stop her. Then don't be. But keep the key. You'll need it. She paused at the doorway. Why? Lucian looked at her, and in that moment, the calm mask slipped just enough for her to glimpse what lay beneath: exhaustion, regret, something almost like fear. Because the past doesn't stay buried, he said quietly. And the people who owed me aren't the only ones watching you now. Arya's breath caught. What does that mean? But Lucian didn't answer. Outside, thunder rumbled far out over the ocean, low and distant. Arya left the house with the key still in her hand. The air smelled of salt and storm. She told herself she wouldn't go back. But as the car carried her home, she couldn't stop glancing at the waves through the rear window, at the light still burning in the glasshouse, steady against the dark. That night, she placed the key beside the bracelet on her nightstand. Two symbols, both heavy with meaning she didn't want. She lay awake long after midnight, wondering which frightened her more. The things Lucian had done, or the part of her that no longer wanted to run from him. Rain came again the next morning, softer this time, steady as breath. It drummed against the glass of Arya's apartment windows while she sat at the kitchen table, staring at the small silver key. It lay beside her untouched coffee like a question she couldn't answer. She had promised herself she wouldn't call Lucian. But by the third cup, she did. He answered immediately. "Arya. I want the truth," she said. "All of it." A pause. "Then come to me." She hesitated. "Where?" "You already know." The line went dead. By late afternoon, she stood outside the glasshouse again. The sky had darkened to bruised gray, the waves were restless. She didn't knock this time, just stepped inside. Lucian was in the study, as though waiting. His jacket hung over the chair, his shirt sleeves rolled, his expression unreadable. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said. "I almost didn't. Yet here you are." Arya crossed her arms. "Because you owe me answers." Lucian's eyes softened. "Then ask." She took a breath. "Why was my ex involved with you?" "He wasn't, directly," Lucian said. "He borrowed from people who owed me. When they couldn't repay, the debt fell to me to collect. I don't like chaos in my network." "Network," she repeated, her voice tight. "So that's what you call it." Lucian nodded. "I don't run drugs or weapons. I run control. Information, influence, protection. Everything in this city moves through someone who owes someone else. I make sure the lines stay clean." "That sounds a lot like organized crime," she said. His gaze didn't waver. "It is organized. Whether it's crime depends on who writes the laws." Arya shook her head. "You make it sound so rational." "It is rational," Lucian said quietly. "And necessary." "Necessary for who?" "For people who live in the space between justice and survival." Her throat tightened. "You mean people like me?" "I mean people like me," he corrected. She looked away, pacing the room. "So everything I know about you, all of it, is built on lies?" "No," he said softly. "On omissions. I didn't lie about what mattered." "Then tell me why you really helped me," she said, turning back to him. "Don't say protection. Don't say balance. Why me?" Lucian hesitated for the first time. The control slipped, just slightly. "Because you looked like someone who'd stopped believing in rescue," he said. "And I wanted to remind myself what it felt like to care." Arya's breath caught. The sincerity in his tone cut through every layer of anger she'd built. "I don't know whether to be grateful or terrified," she whispered. "Both are honest," he said. She sank into the chair across from him, exhaustion washing over her. "So where does this leave us?" Lucian leaned back, studying her. "That depends on what you want. I want you to stop treating me like a problem to solve. Then stop walking into danger." "Don't turn this on me," she snapped. Lucian sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "Arya, I can't change what I am. You walked into my world the moment you stepped into that bar. The moment I saw your ex with you, it stopped being simple. I didn't ask for any of this." "No," he said softly. "But neither of us can unmake it now." He rose, walked to a small cabinet, and retrieved another folder. "This is what you need to understand." Inside were photographs, men in suits, buildings she recognized from the city skyline, bank ledgers marked with coded initials. "These are the people who owe me," Lucian said. "And the people who would like to see me, and now you, removed." Arya looked up sharply. "What? You think this ends with your ex?" "It doesn't. When he disappeared, people noticed. They think you know more than you do." Her pulse spiked. "So I'm in danger because of you?" Lucian met her eyes steadily. "You're in danger because of proximity. My world doesn't forgive witnesses." Arya stepped back, heart pounding. "You should have left me out of it." "I tried," he said quietly. "But I'm not good at letting go." "Is that supposed to make me feel better?" "No. It's supposed to make you understand why I can't walk away now." The storm outside thickened, wind rattling the windows. Arya felt trapped, not just in the house, but in the pull between everything she feared and everything she couldn't resist. "So what happens next?" she asked. Lucian looked at her with that quiet certainty she was beginning to recognize. "Next, we make a deal." Her pulse quickened. "A deal? I keep you safe. You trust me to do it. Arya stared at him. That's not a deal. That's a command. He smiled faintly. Then name your terms. She hesitated, searching his face for any hint of deceit. You tell me everything. No more secrets. Lucian nodded. Agreed. And in return? In return, he said, you stop pretending you can handle this alone. The air between them felt thick. Finally, Arya whispered, fine. Lucian's expression softened. Then we have a deal. He extended his hand. She hesitated, then took it. His grip was warm, steady, grounding. The kind of grip that could steady you or destroy you, depending on which direction it turned. When she finally left, the rain had stopped. The waves had gone still. But the world felt changed, heavier, sharper, and somehow more real. The next day, Arya woke to sunlight cutting through the blinds. For a few blissful seconds, she forgot everything. Then the memory of last night, the deal, the storm, Lucian's words, came rushing back. At work, she tried to focus, but her mind kept drifting. She wondered what he was doing, if he really meant what he said, or if this was just another layer in whatever game he played. That evening, as she walked home, she saw him waiting near the corner. No car this time. No guards. Just Lucian, hands in his pockets, looking almost ordinary. You should stop appearing like that, she said when she reached him. It's unsettling. Then you should stop looking surprised, he said with a faint smile. She sighed. What do you want? Dinner. I'm not hungry. Then conversation. She hesitated. About what? The truth. Against her better judgment, she followed him. They ended up in a quiet cafe on a side street she'd never noticed before, small, warm, nearly empty. Lucian ordered coffee for both of them. I told you last night I'd tell you everything, he said. So I will. Arya leaned back, arms crossed. I'm listening. He studied her for a moment, as if deciding where to begin. You asked why I helped you. The truth is, I saw you long before you saw me. She frowned. What do you mean? I'd seen you at the hospital. Months before the night we met. You were coming off a night shift. You stopped outside, gave your lunch to a man sleeping under the bus shelter. Most people walk past. You didn't. Arya blinked. You were watching me. Observing, he corrected gently. I told you, I notice things. You reminded me of someone. Who? He looked down at his coffee, his voice quieter now. My sister. She worked in a clinic like yours. Kind, stubborn, too honest for her own good. She got involved with someone who owed the wrong people money. I couldn't save her in time. The words landed heavy. Arya felt her anger dim. Lucian. He shook his head. Don't. I don't want sympathy. I just want you to understand why I stepped in. When I saw you with Ryan, saw him humiliate you, it wasn't about him. It was about not watching it happen again. Arya's throat tightened. You think protecting me will fix what happened to her? Lucian met her eyes. I think it's the only way I know how to live with it. For a long time, neither spoke. The hum of the cafe, the soft clink of cups, the faint sound of rain starting again, all of it felt far away. Finally, Arya said softly, you should have told me. I didn't know how, he said. You were supposed to hate me. It would have been easier. Easier for who? For both of us. Arya smiled sadly. It's too late for that. Lucian's eyes softened. I know. He reached into his coat and pulled out another envelope. This is for you. She frowned. Another gift. No. A truth. Inside was a single piece of paper, a transfer document. Her student loans, her medical debt, paid in full. She looked up sharply. Lucian. He held up a hand. Before you get angry, understand this. It's not payment. It's closure. You said you wanted to start over. Now you can. I didn't ask you to do this. You didn't have to. Her voice trembled. You can't just buy your way into redemption. I'm not buying anything, he said softly. I'm giving back what the world stole from you. She stared at him, searching for the trap. You really don't want anything? Lucian's gaze held hers. I want you to stop looking at me like I'm the villain in your story. Arya swallowed hard. And what if you are? Then at least you'll know why, he said. The rain outside thickened, streaking the windows. She sat back, heart heavy, unsure whether to be grateful or terrified. When they finally left the cafe, the air smelled of wet earth and electricity. Lucian walked her home in silence. At her door, he stopped. You said once I scare you, he said. Do I still? Yes, she whispered. But not for the same reasons. He studied her for a moment. Good. Fear keeps us honest. Does it? She asked. Lucian's smile was faint, tired. It's the only thing that ever has. Then he turned and walked away, disappearing into the rain like a shadow dissolving into mist. Arya watched him go, heart pounding, realizing with a clarity that frightened her. The more she learned about Lucian Vale, the harder it became to walk away. The following week unfolded like a slow-motion fall, silent, unstoppable. Lucian didn't contact her for several days. For a while, Arya thought it was for the best. The quiet should have brought relief, but instead it felt like withdrawal, like the absence of gravity after a storm. At the hospital, work had become her only anchor. Yet even that started to feel strange. There were subtle changes, men she didn't recognize loitering near the entrance, cars idling longer than usual outside. Once, when she stepped outside for coffee, she noticed a dark sedan parked across the street with its engine running. She told herself it was coincidence. But deep down, she knew. Lucian's reach was long, even when unseen. On Thursday, her supervisor called her into the office. Arya, we need to talk, she said gently. A detective came by today asking questions about your ex-husband. They said you were the last person seen speaking to him before he went missing. The words hit like ice. Missing? Arya repeated faintly. They haven't found him, her supervisor said. They're checking everyone connected to his business dealings. They just want to talk, I think. But, Arya, she hesitated. You need to be careful about who you associate with. Arya nodded numbly, thanking her before stepping out. The hallway blurred. Her pulse thundered. Outside, she stood under the grey sky and pulled out her phone. Her hands trembled as she typed. Arya, we need to talk. Now. The reply came within seconds. Lucian, I know. He met her that night at his glass house. The ocean crashed against the rocks below, louder than usual. When she arrived, Lucian was already standing by the window, sleeves rolled, a tumbler of whiskey in hand. He looked tired, not from lack of sleep, but from something deeper. Ryan's missing, she said without preamble. Lucian didn't turn. Yes. You said he was fine. I said he wouldn't bother you again. Don't play word games with me, she snapped. What did you do? Lucian finally turned. His face was calm, but his eyes held something darker. I cleaned up a mess that was going to destroy you. You killed him. Silence. Didn't you? She pressed. He set the glass down slowly. He made choices that ended with consequences. That's all. Don't you dare reduce it to that, she said, voice breaking. You took a human life. Lucian stepped closer, his tone steady. He wasn't innocent, Arya. He would have dragged you into his debt. He would have sold your name, your job, everything he could to save himself. I saw the paperwork. I don't care. Yes, you do, Lucian said quietly. You care because it means someone finally acted while you were still deciding whether you had the right to. The words cut through her like glass. You think this is noble, she whispered. That you're some kind of savior? No, he said softly. I think I'm the monster who did what you couldn't. The quiet finality in his voice made her step back. Lucian didn't move to stop her. If you want to walk away, do it now, he said. But know this, walking away doesn't make it untrue. He's gone. And the world will keep spinning. Arya's chest ached with 1,000 tangled feelings, grief, guilt, anger, relief. She wanted to scream. She wanted to run. But mostly, she wanted to stop feeling the strange, terrible calm that had settled over her. You've ruined everything, she said hoarsely. I've made you free. No, she whispered. You've made me complicit. Lucian's gaze softened. Then hate me. But don't lie to yourself about what you feel. I feel sick, she said. You feel alive, he corrected. That broke something in her. You don't get to define my feelings, Lucian. You don't get to decide my life. He looked at her for a long moment. You're right, he said quietly. So decide it. She turned away, her hands shaking. You said you'd never cage me. I haven't. You've built the walls yourself, she said, tears stinging her eyes. I just didn't see them until now. Lucian's expression flickered, but he didn't argue. When she finally spoke again, her voice was small but steady. We're done. He nodded once. If that's what you want. She walked past him without looking back. Outside, the air was sharp and cold. She didn't stop walking until she reached the main road and flagged down a cab. For the first time since she'd met him, Lucian didn't follow. Arya didn't hear from him for 3 days. The silence was heavier than anger. But she couldn't escape the fallout. 2 detectives came to the hospital asking more questions. Megan started avoiding her, nervous under the attention. News reports began to whisper about Ryan's mysterious disappearance. And every time she looked at her phone, part of her wished Lucian would call even just to fight. On the 4th night, she stood on her balcony, staring at the dark skyline, and whispered to the empty air. Why does it feel like you're still here? By the end of the week, exhaustion had hollowed her out. She went through her shifts in a fog, smiling when required, speaking only when necessary. That Friday evening, she walked home through the city streets, clutching her jacket tight against the wind. The world felt too loud: horns, chatter, rain starting again. She wanted silence. When she reached her apartment building, she noticed it immediately. The lock, new, polished, slightly different from before. Her stomach turned cold. She hadn't requested maintenance. Lucian, she whispered. She stepped inside cautiously. The apartment was dark, except for a single lamp near the couch. And there he was, sitting, waiting, perfectly still. Don't do that, she said quietly, closing the door behind her. You can't just break into my home. I didn't break in, he said softly. You still had the key. I told you we were done. I know. Then why are you here? Lucian rose slowly, his movements unhurried. Because I needed to see that you were safe. I don't need your protection anymore. Yes, you do. His tone wasn't arrogant, just certain, too certain. Arya crossed her arms. You think you can just decide what's best for me, don't you? You kill, you manipulate, and then you call it mercy. Lucian's jaw tightened. It's not mercy. It's control. Finally, she said bitterly. You admit it. He exhaled, stepping closer. I control chaos. Not people. Then why can't you let me go? He hesitated, then said quietly, because you're the only thing in my life I don't want to own. The words stunned her. She stared at him, heart pounding. Then stop acting like you do. I'm trying, he said, and for the first time, his voice cracked. Something inside her softened despite herself. Lucian. He took another step forward, close enough that she could see the exhaustion shadowing his face, the tension in his jaw. You don't understand what happens when I let go, he said. There are people watching me, watching you. You walk away, and they'll see it as weakness. They'll use you to get to me. So that's it, she said quietly. I'm a liability. No, he said. You're a weapon they can use against me. That's worse. Arya shook her head. I didn't ask to be part of your war. I know, he whispered. But now you are. He reached into his pocket and handed her a phone, small, unmarked, new. Use this from now on. The other one isn't secure. She didn't take it. You really can't stop, can you? Lucian's voice was low, almost pleading. Arya, please. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to survive. She stared at him for a long time, then finally took the phone. And what happens after that? Do I disappear like Ryan? His expression didn't change, but the silence that followed was answer enough. Arya's throat tightened. I can't do this. She turned toward the door, but Lucian caught her wrist, not roughly, not possessively, just enough to make her stop. I'll let you go, he said quietly. If you promise to stay alive. She looked at him, tears filling her eyes. That's not a promise I can make. Lucian's gaze held hers, sorrow, control, and something dangerously close to love. Then I'll make it for you. He released her hand. Arya walked out, down the hall, out into the cold night. The wind tore at her hair, the city blurred around her. She didn't look back, not even once. But as she reached the end of the block, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Unknown, he's not safe either. Her breath caught. She looked around, no one there. The message disappeared before she could screenshot it. The night suddenly felt darker, the shadows heavier. Maybe Lucian was right. Maybe walking away didn't mean escaping. She pressed the new phone tighter in her palm and whispered to herself, I'm not done yet. That night, Lucian stood alone in her apartment, watching the city lights through the window. He knew she was gone and that she was right to go. But he also knew what she didn't. The men who had come for Ryan were still out there. And they had already found someone new to follow. Someone named Arya Cole. Lucian poured himself a glass of whiskey, his reflection fractured in the glass. You wanted the truth, he murmured. Now you'll see what it costs. Outside, thunder rolled again, distant but closing in. The storm broke 3 nights later. Arya was halfway through another night shift when the emergency room doors burst open, and chaos spilled inside. A man in his 30s was wheeled in on a stretcher, blood soaking through his shirt, a gunshot wound tearing through his shoulder. The nurses rushed into motion, shouting vitals, cutting away fabric, working fast. Arya's training took over before her mind caught up. Clamp the artery. Move the tray closer. The patient groaned, half-conscious. As she leaned closer to check his pulse, she froze. A tattoo on his wrist, an angular black mark she recognized instantly. One of Lucian's men. Her stomach turned cold. Arya. Megan's voice cut through the noise. We need pressure here. Arya forced herself to focus. She pressed her hand over the wound, keeping steady, counting heartbeats. But her mind raced. If one of Lucian's people had been shot, that meant the danger wasn't gone. It had found them. When the man was stabilized and transferred to surgery, she slipped away to the hallway, shaking. She didn't even realize she was crying until her vision blurred. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Lucian, are you hurt? She wiped her eyes. Arya, no. But one of your men is here. Gunshot. What's happening? Lucian, get out of the hospital. Now. Arya, I can't just leave in the middle of my shift. Lucian, Arya, please. It's not safe. Her chest tightened. Arya, then come tell me why. No response. She waited, pacing the corridor. Then, from the corner of her eye, she saw movement through the glass doors, 2 men in dark coats, scanning the ER. Not patients. Not police. Her breath caught. She ducked into a supply room, heart pounding. The men stepped inside the waiting area, their eyes sharp, deliberate. They were looking for someone. Ha! She reached for her phone again, fingers trembling. Arya, they're here. The reply came instantly. Lucian, don't move. I'm coming. Minutes stretched into hours. At least, it felt that way. She pressed herself against the wall, listening for footsteps outside. Then, the sharp crack of something heavy striking glass. Shouts. The door swung open, and Lucian stepped inside, eyes fierce, a bruise darkening his jaw. Are you hurt? He asked, scanning her. No, Lucian, what is going on? They found out who you are, he said. The people behind Ryan's debt, they think you know where his files are. The ones he kept before he disappeared. I don't know anything. I know, Lucian said. But they don't care. Maybe one day you'll forgive me for everything I've done. Arya's voice was steady. Maybe I already have. They stood together as dawn broke over the horizon, the world washed in light. For the first time, Lucian looked like a man unburdened, fragile, real, human. Arya knew their story wasn't finished. It never would be. But for now, there was peace. And sometimes, peace was enough. Maybe love isn't about light or dark, she whispered, watching the waves. Maybe it's about who keeps you alive when the world wants you dead. The story might end here, but the world it came from never sleeps. If you want more secrets, more danger, more of that tension that lingers long after the last line, then make sure you hit subscribe and turn on notifications. I release new stories every week, each one taking you deeper into the beautiful chaos between love, loyalty, and power. So stay curious. Stay hungry. And remember, in this channel, every ending is just the beginning of something darker.